What's good, party people? This is your friendly neighbor, Chad the Maverick, and we're doing something new this time. Welcome to class. Class is in session. And what I mean by that is that this is your Astrology 101 course, and I'm going to be breaking down the fundamental processes of astrology, a big part of what astrology is really about, and actually breaking down the energies in a way where it makes it tangible enough so you can start to see how the zodiac and how the houses and how the planets all apply in our everyday lives. So that's one thing that I really want to break down to you. Now, one thing I want to make clear first and foremost, I'm not here to prove astrology is real. I'm not here to necessarily break down why astrology is real, because it is seen and proven in certain iterations on how things repeat themselves throughout history. That's not my area of expertise. I'm not here to tell you why it works. I'm here to tell you how it works. And from there is when you're going to actually start to see where these gaps fill in. So, everyone that's here, once again, welcome to Astrology 101. Please take a seat, get out your notebooks, get out your pens, or don't do that at all, and just listen, because we're about to get into this right now. So, what I want to start off with, in comparison to what a lot of people might start off with, is actually the houses before I get into the planets and the signs and such like that, right? So there's 12 houses, and the 12 houses all rule pretty much the 12 archetypes that make up human life, right? The first house representing self, the second house representing values, the third house representing communications, the fourth house representing your origin, the private matters, your fifth house representing pleasures of life, your sixth house representing your livelihood, the seventh house representing partnerships, the eighth house representing rebirth and your personal magic, the ninth house representing wisdom and knowledge, the 10th house representing your highest work, the 11th house representing how the communications and the tribal aspects of things, and then the 12th house representing the universe and the undoing, the psychic nature of everything. So with the 12 houses, these houses are divided into two separate groups, or two different ways that you could break them down, right? So there's one way where it's divided into three groups, where you're breaking down the different modalities of the houses. And what modalities is essentially is there's three different key energy signatures to astrology, and that's cardinal, fixed, and mutable, right? Things that are cardinal are going to be very focused around the idea of identity and how we identify. Things that are fixed are things that are consistent. They hold and they keep through the test of time, and that's how they are. And then for mutable is the adaptability. It's the ability to change and the ability to transmute one thing into the next. And these are the way that the houses get divided when it comes to cardinal, fixed, and mutable. So for the cardinal houses are going to be the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, and the 10th house, right? So what the first house represents is the self, the personality, who you are, your aura, how you in your unconscious mind kind of gathers this physical plane. Like, it gets deep. The first house represents a lot for you. It's also the key to everything else in like your natal chart, but we'll get into that later. The fourth house, it represents the home. It represents the later part of your life. And what the fourth house also represents is like the psychic nature of yourself, your private life, your private matters, things that you don't necessarily share to everyone else because it's very specific to you and what you deem as home. That's what the fourth house mostly represents. What the seventh house represents is generally partnership. It represents partnership. It represents marriage. It represents the other side of you being your own person, right? So the seventh house represents other people and how you relate to other people. And that's what the seventh house is going to largely be about. It's also known as the descendant in astrology. And what the 10th house represents is honor, position, generally career. The way I perceive the 10th house is a little bit different. I take it on a little more spiritual end. So what I see the 10th house as is, it is the meeting point between you, your higher self, your spirit guides, your ancestors, etc. This is the place where I feel people most meet with their highest good, their connection to their higher selves and their highest good. So I think the 10th house also represents what's the highest good people can be bringing into this existence, right? So that's just a breakdown of the cardinal. And all of these are going to be very focused around identity. That's the big key word when it comes to the cardinal signs. The way that the fixed signs are set up is that they usually are going to be showing stability, willpower, and just the fixed nature of how you can sustain something. It's going to be about what can you do to hold things intact and to make sure that they're able to sustain over time. That's what the fixed houses are going to represent. So the second house is going to mostly represent values. It's going to represent money. Like, what do you deem valuable? How are the finances working? Is everything secure? It's going to be about security. It's going to be about making sure that all the bills are paid, making sure everything's set so you can live in comfort, right? That's what the second house pretty much represents. What the fifth house represents is your creativity. It represents how you can sustain using your heart and using your passion to continuously make new things, to continuously staying in that same energy and that frequency of love, to keep creating, to keep passionate, to keep in your raw identification. The fifth house also represents children. So it's pretty much representative of where does your childlike heart reside. That's what the fifth house represents in a lot of ways. What the eighth house represents is the fixation of, well, it's regeneration, actually. The eighth house represents life, death, and rebirth in a lot of ways, and that's pretty much what it's mostly going to be about. But what I personally also akin the eighth house to is just people's personal magic. It's like what's behind closed doors, what's behind the curtain. When you work on something behind any closed doors, it's also the occult technically, and the occult is anything that's behind closed doors. So if you just live in your room and you have the door closed, you're in an occult space. You are to yourself. That's what the eighth house pretty much represents, right? And what the 11th house represents is large scale communications. I usually akin it to tribes and such like that. It's also the house of wishes and hope. So kind of like that shooting star type of energy. What the 11th house really does represent, though, is just the connecting. I say that the internet is very intertwined with the 11th house because it's the ability for all of us to meet at a collective scale and be on the same page and at the same talking level. So that's what I usually akin the 11th house to. But that's it's just showing how big the world is kind of what the 11th house represents. So that's what it is when it comes to the fixed signs, and they stay fixated in whatever energy is represented. So now we're going to go into the mutable signs, right? And what the mutable signs essentially represent are going to be the change in between things, the alchemization of things, right? So the third house is representative of communication, right? Day-to-day communication, anything that's like short type of travel, just talking between one or two people. It's also word of mouth is ruled by the third house. Anything that has to do with like trying to communicate something that you think or you've heard to someone else is represented by the third house. So the third house is a very critical house, but that's the way that it changes things, because you change minds and you change ideas and you exchange words through the third house, right? So for the sixth house, we have daily life, we have employment, we have routine, we have livelihood, we have lifestyle, we have health. Those are all things that are representative of the sixth house, right? So it's like, what do you do every day is what the sixth house represents. Like how do you live your life is represented by the sixth house. That's so the way you interact with the world, day-to-day basis, sixth house. The ninth house is going to be about mental exploration. It's also going to be about philosophy. It's also going to be about teaching, learning as well. That's also the third house, but it's going to be about teaching. It's going to be about the vision quest. Ninth house is very vision quest oriented. It's very centered around just learning things such as astrology, learning the true nature of man is what the ninth house is really about, like learning what that really is. And for the 12th house, what the 12th house is the subconscious, right? It's the subconscious mind. And that's where like the universe speaks to people. That's where magic is created. That's where dreams exist. That's where you go when you sleep. Is very 12th house. 12th house, from my understanding as well, the 12th house is like how the universe whispers through you, and it brings you the information that you need to do in your real life in real time. So the 12th house is also a very important house as far as everything is concerned. So that's the breakdown of pretty much just what the houses represent. And now we're going to be getting into the elements and the signs. So this is the moment that you've all been waiting for. Anyway, so now we're going to be getting into the part that most people know and that most people kind of have an understanding of. I'm going to be breaking this into it a little bit more. We're gonna get into it just to give a little more insight and such like that, because whereas most people listening to this probably have an inkling of astrology already, just like anything that's super cookie cutter, we're cutting all of that out. Like, we're getting straight to it. So when it comes to this, right, let's talk about the elements, right? If you ever seen, let's say Avatar: The Last Airbender, right? Everyone's probably seen Avatar: The Last Airbender, but if anything, the elements: fire, air, earth, and water. So these are the elements that are also correspondent to the houses and even the signs. These elements actually play a very critical role as far as how everything interacts, right? So these 4 key elements are also going to be linked to the houses and the signs, right? So let's go to the houses first. So the houses that are fire are going to be the 1st house, the 5th house, and the 9th house, right? And what these houses birthed are the signs of Aries, 1st house, Leo, 5th house, and Sagittarius, 9th house. Now we're going to go to the houses that are going to be representing of Earth, right? Which is going to be the 2nd house, the 6th house, 2nd house, Taurus, 6th house, Virgo, and then the 10th house, Capricorn, right? Now we're going to have the houses that represent air. Now that's going to be the 3rd house, Gemini, the 7th house, Libra, and the 11th house, Aquarius, right? Now we're going to get to the last group of houses, which is going to be the houses of endings and spiritual nature. It's going to be the 4th house, Cancer, the 8th house, Scorpio, and then the 12th house, Pisces. Now, this is the elements in the correspondence to the houses and also the signs that they birth. Now, this is the part that you've really, really been waiting for, the zodiac signs. Now, there's 12 zodiac signs, as you could probably get by now, that are also pretty connected and intertwined with the 12 houses because they're the offsprings of those houses. Now, Aries. Aries represents the self. But what Aries also represents, besides the typical everyday, Aries are angry or Aries are frustrated. Like, no, Aries represents the mind in a lot of ways, right? It's the first impulses of what the consciousness is getting from all the stimuli that's going on around the world, right? That's why Aries are very direct. They are representative of the first initial spark, the first going of. It's the beginning and the opening of the zodiac. It is the opening to life in a lot of senses. Aries represents the vitality of that childlike nature, that newborn nature. Is the new. It's everything's novel for Aries. Aries takes in life exactly how it is as it happens, right? That's why it's so interconnected with the mind and how everything kind of translates for the most part. So that's Aries. Aries are also ruled by Mars. So Mars is going to definitely be giving the power of assertion. There's a certain dominance that comes with Aries. There's a certain fighting spirit that also comes with Aries because it's like the first initial output. And we as humans are still technically animals. So it's representing the primal nature of what's your first reaction. What's the first thing that you want to do? What's the first thing? That's the first aspect that comes with that, because what Aries is trying to do is trying to fulfill what the mind first encapsulates immediately. That's the reason why Aries are often seen as impulsive, but they are in a lot of ways symbolic of just like life in general, especially coming from that first house space as well. So now for Taurus, right? If you're a Taurus, they've probably told you something about food, something about you sleeping, something about comfort and cozy blankets, and Taurus does not get enough credit. So what Taurus really represents is like what is material, what can be made tangible. Taurus is about tangibility and building upon tangibility in order to actually see like what's valuable. A Taurus is a person that can know exactly what's the most expensive thing if you put 3 identical things next to it, because Taurus understands the textures in between life. Taurus understands what's actually here and how this corresponds. So a big thing with Taurus too is that Taurus are extremely hard workers. They have a persistence and, as they say often, a stubbornness to them as far as what they're trying to get done. But this type of staying power is very representative of Earth, which is what Taurus represents to begin with, but also in how things grow. So what I also say with Taurus, like Taurus is the process of a tree growing, right? Like it sets its roots and then it keeps expanding from there. And once that grows, everything else from the trees and the branches could reach out and then like bear fruit. And that's the thing when it comes to Taurus. Taurus are these nature oriented people where it's like they want to build and grow that seed that they originally had, and they will see it through to the end due to that fixed nature and through to that earth influence of the element. Right. So now we're going to get into Gemini. Now, where they do say Gemini are the talkers of the zodiac, they're actually right. Geminis are very mercurial. They are about the sharing of ideas, the sharing of concepts. Geminis a lot of the times have a lot of like random facts that they just acquired. There's a certain form of intellect that comes with them and their ability to remember very small bits of like information and random info that actually allows them to be better communicators in in the process, right? A lot of the times Geminis get a bad rep for like, oh, Geminis are two-faced, or oh, they have two sides. Like, yes and no. The thing with Geminis is that Geminis will specifically mirror the energy that people give them, right? So whereas if someone is very open, accepting, fun around a Gemini, Gemini will show its greatest and best qualities, and everyone's laughing, everyone's having a good time. If you're lying around a Gemini, or you're trying to keep secrets, or you're gossiping around a Gemini, they're going to be giving the same type of energy back, because they're like, oh, this is what I'm seeing. And so Geminis will subconsciously and sometimes consciously mirror what's going on with the other person, because they have this, that's part of their like mercurial nature, it's part of their communication. They're matching up to the energy that's being presented to them, so they can communicate with you at the level where you can understand it. So it's almost like they'll change to match how you speak and how you know how to communicate, which is why they're also usually seen in that manner. But if you're seeing and you're saying a Gemini's two-faced, you might need to check what you've done, because they really typically just mirror back whatever was originally given to them. So now when it comes to Cancer, Cancer is archetyped as the mother. And in a lot of cases, this can be true. But the reason why this is because Cancers are very focused on the nurturing of others. It's also going to be about how, not just the nurturing, but Cancer set the emotional, the vibe. Cancer set the vibe of the room. They have a certain set like standard that they'll bring to a room where other people have to match it. So if the Cancer is there, someone with Cancer energy, they'll typically have a very specific vibe to the room. They'll be very conscious about how things are being perceived and received through anyone else that experiences that area or that vibe or that feeling. That's what Cancer is very oriented about, and what they really try to do. Cancers are also psychic nature in a lot of senses, because they represent the ocean, and the ocean, as far as like, the element of water is showing the depths of the subconscious, which is also where psychic nature essentially brews from. So Cancers are able to kind of psychically attune themselves to create the proper vibes and tones and setting for other people to come in and feel comfortable and or feel any type of way that a Cancer is trying to portray or give off. So when it comes to Leos, just kidding, we're not talking about Leos today. Just kidding, we'll talk about Leos. Leos have a very playful nature. Leos are people that are ruled from their heart in its entirety. The reason why Leos are able to radiate the warmth that they do, or they're able to radiate the energy that they do, is because everything for them is very centered in their their heart chakra, who they really are, how they really set up as people. Their identity is really brought into the general pleasures of life. Most Leos are typically into entertainment of some sort, or they want to be an entertainer of some sort, or just being able to like kind of bring about that camaraderie between people, so everyone's able to have like good time, experience pleasures, etc. That's what Leo's pretty much set up around. So they're always going to try to bring the party. They're always going to try to bring the ability so your heart gets tapped into its own frequency. Leos are very they want people to live through their hearts. They want people to live out the dreams that their heart feels. That's the big thing when it comes to Leo. So a lot of people say that Leo's about attention. It's not necessarily about attention, but the heart energy that they have brings attention from a lot of people that may have issues with their own, or issues with their own trying to figure out who they are. Like a Leo will really bring out the love of someone, so they're able to tap into that love frequency. So When it comes to Virgos get a lot of flack because they're essentially the perfectionists of the zodiac. So in this perfectionism, they're very akin to finding details in between things that most people hadn't searched for, and they're able to bring those up. So the thing with Virgos is that they're able to bring their attention and almost psychically and naturally find certain solutions and certain pathways, and being able to present them in a way where they're like, no, this idea is tangible. This is how we can make it work. And here's how we can change things, right? The issue is a lot of the time people don't want to hear how they can improve on things. And Virgos are a very communicative sign. So if they have something, they're going to let you know, like, oh, this is how you can improve. This is that. Now, not to say that Virgos are all just like this. Virgos get like a whole lot of flack, but there's some Virgos that are just very in tune with how essentially the earth works, right? There's a lot of Virgos that are very connected to nature. There's a lot of Virgos that are very connected to just finding solutions for things. Virgos have a very scientific very scientific nature. They're the ones that are going to be figuring out how to make the next big thing because they paid attention to the one thing that other people haven't seen. So that's pretty much like the gist of Virgos, is that they're just very great problem solvers, and they just find the things that are in between that other people can't see. When it comes to Libras are the zodiac's charmers, right? Libras are able to intellectually communicate with people in such a way where they're automatically going to be either attracted to what they have to say, or they want to share a part of themselves because the Libra brought up a certain thing or brought up a certain conversation. Libras are the conversationalists. They're Venusian ruled. Libras are also the equalizers. They are the balancers. They are the ones that are trying to figure out what's actually fair and what's actually balanced for all parties. Like Libra rules democracy in a lot of ways. Libra rules the ability to bring things into contract, but have both parties leaving with a smile on their face. That's pretty much what Libra is about. It's the fairness, the beauty, the equality, and the balance that typically comes with all things. And how can we make that work? And how can we compromise in order to fully achieve what we're trying to aim for? So for Scorpio, if you heard anything about Scorpio, the first thing anyone will talk about is sex. Now, does Scorpio represent this? Yes. Does Scorpio represent like life, death, and rebirth and such like that as well? Yes. But what Scorpio really is the true nature and really getting down to the bottom line truth of what something is, right? Scorpio wants to rip away everything false or everything that is put up as a front, and Scorpio wants to get to the bottom line of what that thing is and how that thing actually feels. Scorpio is very in tune with the general idea of feeling. They feel a lot themselves. It's a very intense form of energy because it is about all things in their extreme. With Scorpio is also purity though. So Scorpio is the purity of something, and usually if a purity is tampered with, it becomes something new. But it still when purity gets tampered with, it does not take it lightly. And that's something that comes with Scorpio, because Scorpio do have pure souls and generally have pure intentions, at least initially when it comes to most things. But if it gets tampered with is when they get the negative side of Scorpio. But a Scorpio that's an understanding of its natures and its pure essence will actually be able to transmute things in such a way where they bring life to everything they touch. So that's a little breakdown about Scorpio. So for Sagittarius are the nomads of the zodiac. They are the I don't know where I'm going, but I'm going to get there because I know I will. They are in a lot of ways, they're like the cartoon show protagonists. That's the best way to describe Sagittarius in a sense, because it's like even when the going gets tough, they're still trying to go for whatever their dream is, whatever their ideal is, whatever their next adventure is. They're very keen on not necessarily just the adventure of the physicality and travel, but also the travel of the mind. So Sagittarius is very representative of just wisdom, learning through experience, always through experience because of Jupiter, but learning through experience. And the humor of life in a lot of senses is also represented by Sagittarius, because it's like, oh, we've been through X, Y, and Z. That's funny. Let's laugh about it. That's kind of what Sagittarius rules, as well as just general optimism and the growing of things like that. So that's pretty much the general basis of Sag. Higher knowledge is what is usually themed behind Sagittarius. So when it comes to Capricorn, right, a lot of the times Capricorn gets key archetyped under the father archetype, right? And the thing with Capricorn is that Capricorn represents the structure of things. Capricorn represents the seriousness, the professionalism, the efficiency of let's get this done. Let's bring this to the top. Oh, we started this with $5. We're going to make it into $5 by the $5,000 by the end of the week. Oh, we're going to be doing this. So the thing with Capricorn is that Capricorn is very centered around the grinding and the work efficiency of getting things done. Now, it's not like the Capricorns are just strictly work. There's fun nature to Capricorn as well, but Capricorns don't necessarily show people their fun side unless they know that they also have a work side as well, that they know that they also can be presented and can be held accountable when it comes to their responsibilities and such like that. Capricorn doesn't like willy-nilly people. Capricorn like people that are very serious as far as what they enjoy and what they want to offer to the world. Capricorns in a lot of senses are very set on the notion that they want to cement something that they've done, a certain achievement, a certain honor, and they want to be able to like have that stand the test of time. So that's a big thing that comes with Capricorn energy. When it comes to Aquarius is the eccentric sign. Aquarius is going to be breaking through any form of limitations in order to rebel against things. Aquarians are very intelligent. They get their information honestly downloaded to them from the universe. So even if an Aquarius doesn't know something, they still know it. It's really weird. Ask any Aquarius you know. If you're an Aquarius listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Like they are very good at kind of using the archetypal things that happen in life and being able to see how those things plug in place so that they continuously happen. Like Aquarius kind of have this ability to tap into the code of life in a sense, and break down why certain things are certain things, but in a very eccentric way, in a very quirky nature. Aquarians are always very individual about how they're in an Aquarius. So you'll probably not run into the same Aquarius that have the same thing. But one thing about Aquarians that is always a thing is that they're humanitarian. So whereas Aquarius might not like people, they do like mankind. They like the ability that humanity can bring good to the world. They like the idea that humanity can make a change and make a difference. It's just that they may not necessarily be social or want to interact with every person they meet, but they will always be very drawn to those that are individualistic and are very much themselves. When it comes to Pisces are the lovers of the zodiac. They live through their heart, and it's not just their regular heart. It's ruled by their like higher heart, right? So Pisces represent in a lot of senses the unconditional love of a person to the universe to a person. Pisces are very much so just spiritual beings living a human existence a little bit more than the other signs, I would say, because they are very tapped into this this sense of purity, this sense of every Pisces knows that they're like kind of what conduits of the universe in a sense, whether they know that or not. But with their feelings and with everything that they receive and the downloads they receive and the things that they'll randomly blurt out, Pisces are very connected to the spirit, very connected to source, very connected to the divine. They're the last sign. They're the omega. Whereas Aries is the alpha, Pisces is the omega. They're the ending. They are the undoing of things in a lot of senses as well, because they take away what everyone else is deemed to be like, oh, this is blank. Well, Pisces is like, it is blank, but it's also way bigger than that. And Pisces are able to kind of show the big picture of not just like what might be going on as far as like life and how people feel, but the big picture about like what things really mean, you know? Pisces are very tapped into the universe in that way, and they'll definitely deliver messages to people, and by accident. That's just how Pisces are kind of set up, to be honest, which is pretty dope. So yeah, that is the 12 zodiac signs. Just quickly explain. And the way that zodiac signs work is that these are energy archetypes that start to then get placed within the planets, right? And this is where people get confused. So what most people know is that they know their sun sign, you know, whatever sign that they were born under. But there's 10 planets to everyone's chart that has a different zodiac sign, which will make up the big picture of who you are and just the rest of anything astrology related, correct? So the planets that we have, we also include the sun and the moon. They're called the luminaries. In ancient times, they were also referred to as planets. But so as far as the planets are concerned, we have the sun, moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. And all of those are also correspondent to the different zodiac signs as well. Whereas Aries and Aries and Scorpio are going to be representative of Mars. Venus is going to be representative of Taurus and Libra. Mercury is going to be representative of Gemini and Virgo. Jupiter is going to represent Sagittarius and Pisces. Saturn is going to represent Capricorn and Aquarius. The sun's going to represent Leo. The moon's going to represent Cancer. And then the outer planets are going to be playing a role on to certain signs as well, right? So Uranus is going to sub-rule or co-rule Aquarius. So Uranus brings a shock factor that Aquarius is able to have. Scorpio is going to also be co-ruled by Pluto, which is what gives Pluto that depth of life and rebirth, that real like oomph to their already Martian energy. And then there's going to be Neptune, which is going to co-rule Pisces, which is going to be bringing more of a dream state to what Jupiter usually shows and expands as far as like what an adventure is and what everything is concerned. But I'm going to be breaking down the planets in a separate series from this. This is the Astrology 101. This is the quick basics behind just astrology in general. This is good to hear for anyone. I hope everyone has enjoyed this, but this is going to be the ending of this video. As far as just a one-on-one, just get things going. I'm going to be making more classes. I'm going to be having things available for the zodiac signs and such like that. So get a little more in depth about things and I can break it down deeper, but I'll be letting y'all know as those things come out. And yeah, so if you're new to this, subscribe, like, share with a friend that kind of likes astrology, but only knows CoStar or something. But that'll definitely just be able to help out and bring new light to how these things work in real time. So yeah, dope. So last but not least, if you're new to this channel, please subscribe. I have my website down below. It's chadmaverick.com. I'm running readings there. It's personal chart readings. I'm doing the progress chart readings I'm bringing back for people, showing how everything is happening energetically for you in this current time and how your chart advances through life. I'm also doing the past life destiny or mission readings as well, really breaking down these key components of your chart so you can start and tap a little bit deeper to the key components of your destiny and such. And I'll be having much more very soon. So once again, just wanted to thank y'all. Peace, love, and enjoy your time. Have a good one.